I grew up in a small village in the Ottawa Valley. Although the communities around us had movie theaters, ours did not. What we did have was a Legion Hall, and twice a year, 6 weeks in the fall and again in the spring, a film series was held. These were usually second-run films that were long past their theater runs, but not ready to be licensed for TV screenings. There were no streaming services then, no torrents from shady Russian websites, no Blu-rays, no DVDs, no VHS. You saw movies in theaters or on TV, and that was it. I would go to the Legion pretty religiously. If I was interested in the movie at all, I'd go, and that usually meant I'd see 4 of the 6 each time, and this went on for years. The first film I ever saw at the Legion might also have been the first film I ever saw on a big screen of any kind. At least it's the first I can remember. Battle for the Planet of the Apes. To say it left an impression on me as a child would be an understatement. The experience of watching a film and being thrilled by it overcame me. It didn't matter, and still doesn't, that the action was weak, the sets fake-looking, the ape suits cheap and shoddy. What matters is how I felt at that moment, how entertained I was, how my imagination soared. That's what stays with me and has my whole life. I had a conversation with a self-proclaimed cinephile friend years ago, and that stayed with me as well. He stated, "I refuse to watch any film made before 2000. There's just nothing good there, and I want to concentrate on new stuff." Let's just say I reject that philosophy. While I enjoy new films as much as anyone, I can say without reservation that my true appreciation for the medium of film comes from my fondness for its past. For simplicity's sake, let's just say, I love old movies. Hello, I'm Derek, and I love old movies. We've got Sam the sidekick riding shotgun today.
Hello.
So, welcome.
Yes, welcome to the podcast.
Who knows? There might even be more of them in the future. And just in case there is, be sure to click all the stuff, right?
Right.
What should they click?
Like.
Click.
Subscribe.
Click.
Share.
Clickety, click, click.
They say it helps. A lot.
Who says?
Other podcasters. They always say that. Click subscribe. It really helps.
Yeah, but it helps how?
I don't know.
Moving on. So the hardest part about starting a podcast seems to be actually starting a podcast. I've read a few of those internet lists about how to podcast, and most of the articles seem to agree on one thing. The first one is going to suck.
Stink.
Be ungood.
Double plus ungood.
So bear with us, we'll get better. But it's a valid point. I didn't want this to be too terrible right off the bat. Probably only family and friends will even listen to this one.
If them,
yes. But I wanted to have something to make it good, quickly and efficiently. A way to show we can make cool film references and make it relevant to what we are doing and to the people who are listening.
Well, people like movies.
Sure they do. Let's build on that.
Absolutely.
But I want it to be catchy, you know? Nifty, neat, keen. I've gone back and forth on how to actually begin.
Yeah, we didn't do the boom whacker thing.
That's probably for the best.
Uh-huh. Well, you did that whole Legion thing at the start. That was new.
I've changed the intro a little, Sam. That's not enough. Now, there's something I've got to get into this podcast besides opinions and factoids. I've got to make I love old movies as important to people as the electricity that makes their computers work.
What are you going to do?
Declaration of Principles. Don't smile, Sam. I've got it all written out. Declaration of Principles.
You don't want to make any promises you don't want to keep.
These will be kept. I'll provide the people of this internet with a podcast that will tell them about films honestly. I will also provide
That's the second sentence you've started with I.
People are going to know who's responsible. And they're going to get the truth here, quickly and simply and entertainingly. And no special interests are going to be allowed to interfere with the truth. I will also provide them with a fighting and tireless champion of their interests as film geeks and as human beings. Signed...
So I'm guessing we won't be doing Citizen Kane anytime soon.
Well, we kind of just did.
That doesn't count.
Moving on. So today, we are taking a close look at the 1949 film Rope of Sand, directed by William Dieterle. Rope of Sand stars Burt Lancaster, Paul Henreid, Peter Lorre, and Claude Reigns. Those last three names should be very familiar to fans of the studio system era of old Hollywood in general, but in particular...
Casablanca.
Say what?
Casablanca. They're in Casablanca.
Yeah, that's totally true. Paul Henreid played Victor Laszlo in Casablanca, sort of the heroic good guy whose wife is willing to sell him out to get some sweet Humphrey Bogart action. And he's the villain in this one.
Can't see it.
Well, he is.
Huh. Now, Peter Lorre I can see as a villain. He's such a little rat.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Lorre, of course, played Ugarte in Casablanca, who for our younger listeners is like him playing Jyn Erso in Rogue One. Ugarte steals the documents that gets the whole thing's rolling, and in the film he comes off as a slimy crook type, but really, he was willing to kill Nazis for profit and personal gain, so...
Not really noble intentions. He's nothing like Jyn.
Judge the work, not the motives.
I mean, I guess.
And Claude Reigns needs no introduction. A true giant of old Hollywood and the studio system, and one of the best character actors of his generation.
Louis in Casablanca.
Prince John in The Adventures of Robin Hood, directed by Michael Curtiz, who also did Casablanca.
Yeah, I really like him.
As well you should. As well we all should. One of his more interesting roles was in The Invisible Man, where
I didn't see that.
Okay, good one. What's awesome about The Invisible Man is that it was part of the Universal series of horror films from the 1930s and 40s. And despite the dark universe nonsense that they tried to get off the ground in recent years with Tom Cruise's Mummy, the classic films really were a shared universe franchise. All the films, from Dracula and Frankenstein in 1931, right up to the ones with Abbott and Costello in the late 40s and early 50s, were one series of films, with recurring actors, characters, and plot lines. Obviously, not as interconnected as we're used to with the Marvel films, but moviegoers basically got monster Avengers back in 1945 with House of Dracula. They called these films monster rallies, and technically the first one was Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman in 1943, but it had only 2 monsters, not 3.
That didn't have them all, though, right? Like, the Mummy's not in those.
No, just Drac, Frank, and Wolfie.
Still, that's cool.
Oh yeah. Make a note of that. We should go deep on that sometime. So back to Rope of Sand. We've just 1 star left to discuss. Burt Lancaster.
Here we go.
Yeah. Okay, so the thing about Burt Lancaster is this. He was an awesome guy. By all accounts, great to work with, a box office draw, really fought back against McCarthyism and the witch hunts in the 50s, even refusing to do a film with John Wayne due to the Duke's right-wing politics. He's the first actor to have a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He was a humanitarian, and just generally a really forward-thinking and decent human being. We should recognize him and admire him. He was good people. But, as an actor, I cannot stand him. Everything I've seen him in, while I might enjoy the film a great deal, I generally dislike his performances. Intensely. Literally every decision he makes as an actor, I do not enjoy. I don't like his delivery. I don't like his screen presence. I don't like how he interacts on screen with his castmates. He is almost certainly one of my absolutely least favorite actors.
Of everyone?
Well, of the big ones. The really big names, of the big screen legend giant types.
You hate him.
Hate him. So much.
But you're literally launching this podcast with a Burt Lancaster film.
Right.
Whom you hate.
Right.
So much.
So much.
So then, why?
Because I'm in touch with the fact that even though I despise the actor as much as I admire the man, and despise his performances, I tend to love the movies he's in. He made a lot of great films, and I don't know if he just made great career choices or had a fantastic agent or what, but his filmography, it's fantastic. Filled with movies I really enjoy. Birdman of Alcatraz, The Rainmaker, I Walk Alone with Kirk Douglas. We should do that one, actually. Run Silent, Run Deep, Elmer Gantry, The Professionals, that has Lee Marvin and Robert Ryan. This is the Burt Lancaster Paradox.
Oh my.
It might be a thing. Hate the actor, but love their movies.
I guess we'll see.
I guess we will.
So, Rope of Sand. Looks like it has a 6.8 on IMDb.
Modest.
Synopsis there says, and I quote, A man abused by a sadistic mining company cop before he could tell where on their desert property he'd found diamonds decides to steal them instead. That's a terrible sentence. That can't be the official tagline.
No, I doubt it. But yeah, it's awful.
Over at Rotten Tomatoes, there is no reviewer score, and there are less than 50 audience reviews also. So if you watch this film, consider dropping your thoughts on it over at the RT.
Absolutely. What is the award situation on this one?
Okay, so none.
Ah.
But there was one Golden Globe nomination for Walter Doneger's screenplay. Now, this was Doneger's only nomination in his career.
Doneger, of course, might be best known as the longtime director on the Peyton Place TV series, and as the writer of the Brian Bosworth film, Stone Cold.
Who the hell is Brian Bosworth?
Okay, you know how sometimes athletes can get really popular, and someone thinks it would be a good idea to put them into movies to capitalize on their popularity?
Like Shaq and Kazam?
Yeah, exactly, but worse. Bosworth had a lot of notoriety from his time as a linebacker at the University of Oklahoma, but he crapped out as a pro with the Seahawks. His hype machine landed him in a few very low-budget actioners, each worse than the last. Stone Cold was the first of them.
Huh. Still making stuff these days.
I guess once you're in, you're in.
Yup.
So our director today, William Dieterle, he's an interesting dude. German-born, got into acting and then directing, working with some of the big names of German cinema at the time, like von Stroheim and F.W. Murnau.
Was he in Nosferatu?
No.
Bah.
When Dieterle came to Hollywood, he worked at Warner's, directing foreign-language versions of American films. He had quite a career and a large filmography, but most of his work is in German or silent, which might be a barrier for some listeners. But definitely check out some of his Hollywood work if you can. Most notable might be the Charles Laughton version of Hunchback of Notre Dame, which also stars Maureen O'Hara from 1939, and the big gem of his career, The Life of Emile Zola. Released in 1935, it won the Oscar for Best Picture, earned Dieterle a nomination for Best Director, and is still in the conversation as being the greatest biopic ever.
Can we just talk about Corinne Calve for a minute?
We should.
So, she is the female lead in this very guy-centric film, and she's pretty interesting. Calve was a Parisian-born actress who got into her films after studying law at the Sorbonne. She had a long career, making her last film in 1988, but maybe not as many credits as you might think for someone who's in the business for so long.
I first saw her in 1982's The Sword and the Sorcerer, one of those D&D-inspired fantasy films that were everywhere in the 80s. But her role in that is so small, IMDb doesn't even list her as having a character name.
She's sort of a very cool femme fatale in this one, and she suits the role to a T.
Okay, I think we've got all the details laid out. Shall we start discussing the film itself?
Oh yeah.
Rope of Sand was envisioned by producer Hal Wallace as a spiritual sequel to Casablanca, but he wasn't able to get Humphrey Bogart or Ingrid Bergman to appear. He did manage to get some of the supporting cast, which lends some class and talent to the film. The Casablanca alum are all in fine form here, although without exception they all look a great deal older than they did in Casablanca, despite this film being made only 4 years later. We open on the land holdings of the Colonial Mining Company in South Africa. Paul Henreid is Vogel, a German expat and art collector, who is also a sadist and police chief.
This is a character with some nuance.
He's in charge mostly of the diamond mine, making sure that no diamonds are stolen or smuggled out.
There's even a great line about people needing exit permits to leave the camp. 4 years later, and poor Paul Henreid is still worried about exit visas.
Mike Davis shows up in town. This is Burt Lancaster. And there's clearly bad blood between him and Vogel. Both men are very unlikable at this point, and it's almost a bit hard to know who to root for. Almost a case of who's less of a jerk. Vogel has been hoping for membership in the mining company's board of directors, but Mr. Martingale, presumably his friend and advocate on the board, this is Claude Reigns, has been secretly blackballing him at every vote.
And we don't know why.
We cut to a swanky, exotic nightclub with a music number. Might as well call it Rex Cafe South African. Martingale meets up with Corinne Calve's Suzanne. She's a scam artist, and he wants to use her to find out about the location of the secret diamond stash that Davis knows of and Vogel has never been able to find.
Wait, what?
Meanwhile, Davis is over at another bar, the South African Blue Parrot, and he meets up with Peter Lorre's Toady. That's a great name. Toady. He's a weird little ne'er-do-well who at 3 points in the film talks about the nature of diamonds, how they will damage glass and steel and the souls of men. Laurie is just great here.
There are some great shots in this film. There's a scene with Davis at the bar with his doctor friend, and the cinematographer opts for some really trippy angle shots that exploit the detail put into the sets. It's good stuff.
And likewise, Martingale is almost always shot from low angles, making him seem very imposing and important. Toady, then, out of the blue, just lays out the entire plot for us. Davis was a hunting guide who strayed too close and then on to colonial land. There, he found the stash of diamonds, which he left hidden. He was captured and tortured by Vogel, but never gave up the location. It's now 2 years later, and he's come back. For the diamonds? For revenge on Vogel? Both?
So really what we have is, what if Casablanca was remade, but it was about diamond smuggling? Problem is, Mike Davis is no Rick Blaine in the roguish alcoholic charm department. He's still totally unlikable.
Trying to sort out everyone's motivations is a bit of a web here. Martingale wants the diamonds back. He hates Vogel for not being able to retrieve them. Davis seems friendly with Martingale, but isn't interested in cooperating with him, and he just really wants to stick it to Vogel. Vogel wants to do his job, maybe meet a nice girl, and get membership into the board of directors based on his exemplary service to the company, which by all accounts is a true thing about him. Suzanne, she just wants to get paid for honeypotting Davis, but also she falls in love with him.
Like, immediately.
And that complicates things. Now, almost as soon as the honey trap is set, Suzanne decides it would be more interesting to just make Vogel and Davis go at each other. And so, Davis and Vogel get involved in a poker game, staked by Martingale, and it seems that Suzanne is the prize in the game, or her honor, or something.
Still really unclear who to feel sympathy for here. Who's the hero? The asshole guy who works for the diamond company? Or the asshole that seems to want to steal from the diamond company? They both have no issue using Suzanne as the prize in a card game.
Yeah, pretty sleazy. I'm trying to imagine Rick winning Ilsa in a card game from Laszlo.
Ugh.
So, Vogel wins the game, just totally waxing Davis. But the thing is...
Marked cards.
Marked cards.
So the sadist ex-Nazi is also a card cheat.
I think we know who the bad guy is now. Vogel takes Suzanne to his home, which is a palace filled with treasure.
It's magnificent. He's a man of taste.
But he's a German, and she's a French woman, and it's only 4 years after the war, so the romance sparks?
None.
Well, from her. He is all over it.
But it's pretty clear he's sad and lonely, and just wants a companion in his life. He really wants a wife.
Even if he has to win one in a card game.
That was paid for by his boss.
And also his boss hired her to be there in the first place. Now remember, this whole thing is supposed to be a Casablanca riff, and we all know what happens to Paul Henreid in Casablanca. Humphrey Bogart takes his girl.
Cue Mike Davis.
Oh yeah. So Davis crashes the party and is really pissed off about the marked cards. He takes the money, takes the girl, takes Vogel's car, and then as a final FU, smashes Vogel's most prized antique, some ancient vase.
Brutal.
These dudes hate each other. Vogel gets a gun and comes after Davis, who then takes the gun and slaps him around effortlessly. This was already a massive cuckolding scene, but to add the gun, the classic phallic symbol of male power, and have Davis just pluck it away from Vogel like it's a daisy in the field, just ups the ante here. It's not just a cuckolding, it's a full-on castration.
Neutered him.
Paul Henreid, Hollywood's greatest cuckold.
Oh yeah.
Davis drives off into the desert with the girl, and we finally get a flashback. We see the scene from 2 years ago. Davis was a hunting guide and had a client with him, and they were looking to shoot a lion. They strayed a little too close to colonial MC land, and Davis wanted to turn back. The client went onto the land by himself, got lost, and died of exposure. Davis tracked him and tried to rescue him and found the secret cache of diamonds, like right in the middle of the desert.
As one does.
It seemed a bit far-fetched. Davis carries his client through the blazing sun and sand, trying desperately to rescue him, and gets arrested by Vogel and his men for being on company land. He gets tortured over the diamonds, but he never speaks. And eventually, he's kicked out of the country and has his hunting guide license revoked.
Okay, that backstory was great. Filmed outside, not on a soundstage. Davis looked like a hero through the whole thing.
It was awesome. And I know who to cheer for now. I feel like this would have worked better as an opening scene to the film and not as a flashback.
But also, I see what you mean about Burt Lancaster. He's not great. He sort of sucks the life out of his scenes.
His intensity always seems so forced and fake. So now things really begin to pick up. Davis has a big plan in place to avenge himself on Vogel and get the diamonds. And Vogel has a big plan in place to win over Suzanne. She replies with the killer line, "I'm not attracted to you."
Savage. Just brutal.
Yeah. Neither plan really works out. Davis gets captured and tortured again. But then Martingale orders his release, hoping he will confess to Suzanne the location of the diamonds.
Which he does.
Sort of. He's really setting a trap to get one last shot of Vogel.
Everything is a mishmash of double crosses at this point. Suzanne double crosses Mike. Mike double crosses Suzanne. Vogel double crosses Suzanne. Martingale double crosses Vogel.
It's like the last scene of Casablanca, but everyone is in on the action. I imagine this like an Xbox game, and someone is just spamming on the double cross button. Double cross, double cross, double cross, double cross.
Totally bonkers. No one is playing anyone else straight.
Davis ambushes Vogel in the desert, and they have this massive fight in the middle of a sandstorm. Kicks, punches, faces pressed into the sand, wild leaps off of a half-track while swinging shovels.
Yeah, it's nuts. So good. You really feel how much these two just hate each other's guts.
And Davis just leaves Vogel in the desert to be rescued by his men.
The feud must continue.
They know each other so well.
They will have to settle this in a cage. No outside interference.
Davis gets the diamonds and he books it to Angola. He meets up with Peter Lorre again, and Peter Lorre does his speech about diamonds.
He's great. I love him. Such a little rat.
Yeah, he is the best. But Vogel kills Davis's doctor friend.
No!
And he beats the tar out of Suzanne.
I was not ready for how much of a pounding she took. Like, he just kept hitting her.
In case you don't know by now that the sadist ex-Nazi is definitively the bad guy, here you go.
But Davis, safe in Angola, with the diamonds, comes back.
To save Suzanne, who's been framed for the murder and arrested.
Because he loves her? She totally loves him at this point. It's all she talks about.
Well, and he hates Vogel. I think either motivation works. There's just so much going on.
Sure. The movie is really moving at this point. Ever since the flashback, it's been a roller coaster.
Davis returns to South Africa and offers to trade the diamonds for Suzanne. He wants Vogel to sign a confession, which Martingale arranges.
More double crosses.
And as soon as Vogel signs the confession and realizes he's been had, Martingale gives him a gun.
Double cross.
Shots fired, Davis kills Vogel.
Like in the plan.
I'm not so sure Martingale cared either way by this point. But we needed the Casablanca ending.
Oh, it's coming.
The scene ends with a killer shot. Another upward angle of Martingale looking triumphant, standing in front of a mounted hunting trophy, as if he was the hunter all along and finally got his prey. The diamonds and Vogel.
They should have ended on that shot. It's just fantastic.
Yeah. It really underlines how the whole thing was Martingale's game all along, and he unequivocally won.
But then there is the other ending. Rope of Sand goes full Return of the King and gives us another ending after the ending.
So Mike is leaving with Suzanne, and Martingale gives him 3 huge diamonds. Just gives them to him.
Very generous and gracious, all things considered.
Now, Davis gives one of them to this helper friend of his, which was kind of his equivalent character of Rick Blaine's Sam in Casablanca, although he didn't really do much to ever help and just kind of hung out in the background all the time. He gives another one of the diamonds to Peter Lorre.
Why was he even there? I thought he was in Angola.
You know why.
Oh, yeah.
He keeps one for himself, and they sail away, leaving Claude Reigns and Peter Lorre to reenact the Rick and Louis walk-away scene from the end of Casablanca.
This is not the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
No. It is too weird and forced, and Lorre just says his same speech about diamonds again. And we end on that, as they walk off screen.
Good movie. I enjoyed that. I wasn't sure the first 30 minutes in, but it really turned around.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we don't actually rate films here. We aren't going to give any stars or thumbs or anything. Just some pros and cons and a recommendation to watch or not watch for yourself.
Let's do it.
Okay, So here are my pros. Number 1, great supporting cast. The Casablanca crew really lifted this film. Claude Reigns was just great as usual. Number 2, the pacing really picks up after the flashback, and it becomes a very entertaining film. Number 3, great sets, and the outdoor scenes were beautifully done. Now the cons. Number 1, Burt Lancaster. Just a typical overwrought performance from him. 2, Corinne Calve's accent and voice tone made her come off less exotic and mysterious and more unintelligible. And 3, the love story. It did not work at all. I believed more that Vogel fell for Suzanne than Suzanne fell for Davis.
Okay, so my pros. Every shot of the desert. I just thought that the scenes out in the desert and sand looked really cool. 2, the half tracks. They looked really interesting with their wheels and tracks, and I enjoyed watching them drive around. 3, Peter Lorre. His character was so fun and weird, and he's just such a little rat. My cons. Basically the entire first half of the film. It was good, but I didn't know who I was supposed to like. 2, Burt Lancaster. I just didn't find him a charming leading guy in the movie. 3, the Paul Henry neutering scenes. For anyone who's a fan of the guy, I don't think they would be particularly enjoyable.
And how about your recommendation?
Watch. I liked it, especially after the flashback.
Same. Totally watch this. Maybe as a double feature with Casablanca, where you can really see the differences for yourself.
Oh, yes.
Where can people find this film, Sam?
It is on YouTube. It doesn't look like Netflix, Amazon Prime, or Tubi have it. At least not in Canada.
YouTube. Perfect. Go give it a watch. Drop us a line. Let us know if you liked it.
We'll wait.
Okay, that about wraps it up for this episode. If you liked it, hit subscribe or like or share, whatever it is you're supposed to do.
Tell people about it.
Yes, do that. Like, tell everyone you know.
Tell your friends.
Tell your enemies.
Unless you didn't like this.
Then, don't tell anyone.
Nope.
Mum's the word.
What if they liked the podcast but hated us?
Like, what if we are an example of the Burt Lancaster Paradox?
Yeah.
That would be ironic. Like right out of an O. Henry short story. Regardless, if you've a mind to, you can get in touch with us, leave a comment, and let us know what you think. Or you can get us on the email.
I love old movies, the podcast @gmail.com.
All one word.
Do we need to tell them about buying socks or how great meal kits will make their lives?
Well, as an actual person with an actual busy life, I find I have no difficulty finding time to grocery shop and prepare meals. So, no.
What about the socks?
Also, not a problem.
Then we're done.
We are indeed. Thanks for listening, and check out episode 2 and it hits. For Sam the Sidekick, I'm Derek, and I love old movies. Sound effects used for I Love Old Movies, the podcast, come from freefx.co.uk. Images are found through the Creative Commons, and our theme song, Burning Bridges, comes from The Crux.